In a small town surrounded by green hills and thick forests, life moved at a slow pace. People went about their days without much excitement. Kids played in the streets, shopkeepers greeted customers with warm smiles, and families gathered for meals in cozy homes. It was an ordinary place where nothing extraordinary ever happened, or so everyone thought. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, something strange began to unfold. At first, no one paid attention. A few people noticed that the stars seemed brighter than usual, but they shrugged it off as just another clear night. Then, around 9 p.m., the sky started shimmering. It wasn't like the northern lights, which some had seen on TV. It was sharper, almost metallic, as if the heavens themselves were shifting. At first, only a handful of people saw it. Sarah, a young woman walking her dog near the edge of town, stopped in her tracks. She tilted her head upward, squinting at the sky. "What is that?" she muttered under her breath. Her dog barked nervously, tugging at its leash. Across town, Mr. Anderson, an elderly man sitting on his porch, leaned forward in his chair, his pipe dangling from his lips. He stared at the glowing streaks cutting through the clouds, unsure whether to call them beautiful or terrifying. Within minutes, the phenomenon grew impossible to ignore. The shimmer turned into a pulsating glow, spreading across the entire sky. Clouds parted unnaturally, as though an invisible hand were pulling them aside. And then, it happened. The moment that would change everything forever. Enormous shapes emerged from beyond the atmosphere, hovering silently above Earth. They were ships, but not like anything humans had ever imagined. Sleek and massive, these vessels radiated an eerie blue light that bathed the landscape below. Trees cast long shadows, and windows reflected the unnatural glow, making the world feel surreal. Panic erupted almost instantly. Phones buzzed non-stop, as videos of the alien ships flooded social media. News channels scrambled to cover the event, reporters speaking over each other in frantic tones. "Unidentified objects have appeared in the skies worldwide," one anchor announced, trying to mask the fear in her voice. "Authorities are urging calm, but details remain scarce." In the town square, a crowd gathered, pointing upward and gasping. Some cried, others prayed, and a few even laughed nervously, convinced it was all some elaborate hoax. But deep down, everyone felt the same thing, a mix of awe and dread. What did these beings want? Were they here to help or to harm? Governments reacted quickly, though not always effectively. Military jets took to the skies, circling the alien ships cautiously. Leaders issued statements, calling for peace while preparing for the worst. Scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the vessels, hoping to find clues about their origins. Yet despite humanity's best efforts, the aliens remained silent. No messages came, no signals were detected. Just those, looming ships watching silently from above. Meanwhile, aboard one of the largest vessels, the aliens observed Earth with growing unease. They hadn't expected this level of resistance, or rather, they hadn't expected any resistance. Their mission was simple: assess the planet's resources and determine whether it was worth claiming. Earthlings, according to their data, were primitive, divided, and weak. Conquering them should have been easy, but what they saw now contradicted everything they'd been told. Cities bristled with activity as humans mobilized faster than anticipated. Strange machines hummed too. Life and communications networks buzzed with coordinated plans. Even individuals who seemed unremarkable moments ago were stepping up, showing courage and ingenuity. Commander Zexar, leader of the alien fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display of Earth. His 6 eyes narrowed as he processed the information streaming in from his scouts. "This species, they are more advanced than our intel suggested," he said, his voice low and gravelly. His advisors shifted uncomfortably, exchanging worried glances. One of them, a slender figure with translucent skin, stepped forward hesitantly. "Perhaps we underestimated them," the advisor admitted. Their technology may be crude compared to ours, but their adaptability is remarkable. Look how quickly they've responded. Zixar nodded slowly, his mandibles clicking softly. He knew the stakes. Failure would mean disgrace, and possibly worse, for him and his crew. But there was something else, gnawing at him, something deeper than fear of punishment. These humans, they weren't behaving like prey. They were acting like predators, ready to defend their territory at any cost. Back on Earth, the initial shock began to give way to determination. In living rooms, classrooms, and offices, conversations turned serious. People talked about what needed to be done, how they could protect their families and their planet. Old rivalries faded as nations reached out to one another, sharing resources and strategies. For the first time in history, humanity truly felt united, not by shared culture or language, but by a common enemy. Among the countless stories unfolding that night, one stood out. In a quiet suburb, a teenage boy named Ethan sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, surrounded by wires, circuit boards, and tools. His parents knocked on his door asking if he'd seen the news, but Ethan barely heard them. His mind raced with ideas, possibilities. If the aliens wanted a fight, he was determined to give them one. Using parts scavenged from old electronics, he began building a device, a prototype weapon powered by electromagnetic energy. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to try. As midnight approached, the sky remained lit by the alien ship's glow. Sleep eluded most people, their minds too restless to rest. The world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Little did anyone know the real battle was yet to begin, and when it did, both humans and aliens would discover just how far they were willing to go to survive. For now, though, the quiet before the storm lingered, a fragile calm filled air, with uncertainty, hope, and fear. The stage was set and the players were ready. All that remained was for the curtain to rise. The days following the arrival of the alien ships were unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. Fear still lingered in the air, but it was quickly giving way to something far more powerful: resolve. Humanity wasn't just going to sit back and wait for the aliens to make their move. Instead, people around the globe sprang into action, determined to protect their planet no matter the cost. In cities and small towns alike, makeshift command centers popped up almost overnight. Community leaders organized volunteers, turning schools, churches, and even shopping malls into hubs of activity. Factories that once produced cars or electronics now churned out weapons and protective gear. Scientists who had spent years working on obscure projects suddenly found themselves at the center of a global effort to understand and combat the alien threat. One such scientist was Dr. Elena Cruz, an astrophysicist whose work had previously gone largely unnoticed. For years, she'd been studying Earth's magnetic field, trying to unlock its mysteries. Her research had earned her little recognition, but all of that changed when the aliens arrived. Within hours of the first sighting, Elena realized that humanity's best chance of survival might lie in harnessing the planet's natural forces. She called an emergency meeting with her team, explaining her theory in rapid-fire sentences. "We can use Earth's magnetic field as a weapon," she said, pacing back and forth in front of a whiteboard covered in equations. "If we generate a strong enough electromagnetic pulse, we could disable their technology. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." Her colleagues hesitated. The idea sounded impossible, reckless even, but desperation pushed them forward. They worked non-stop, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, building prototypes in record time. Meanwhile, governments took notice of Elena's plan and began constructing massive towers capable of generating EMPs. These structures rose across the globe, from deserts to frozen tundras, each one a testament to humanity's ingenuity. While scientists worked on the EMP project, ordinary citizens stepped up in ways no one could have predicted. In New York City, a retired engineer named Greg Miller converted his garage into a workshop, teaching neighbors how to build simple but effective tools using household items. In Mumbai, a group of students used social media to share instructions for creating smoke, bombs, and decoys. Even children got involved, collecting scrap metal and batteries to donate to local defense efforts. Amidst this whirlwind of activity stood Jake Thompson, a former mechanic who lived in a sleepy Midwestern town. Before the aliens came, Jake's life had been unremarkable. He fixed cars during the day and tinkered with old gadgets at night, dreaming of inventions he'd never get around to building. But when the sky split open and revealed those monstrous ships, something inside him shifted. He couldn't explain it, not even to himself, but he knew he had to do something. Jake started by modifying an old pickup truck, equipping it with reinforced armor and a mounted machine gun he salvaged from a military surplus store. When he showed it off to his friends, they laughed at first, calling it Mad Max on wheels. But soon others joined him, bringing their own vehicles to transform into battle-ready machines. Together they formed a ragtag militia ready to defend their town if the aliens attacked. But Jake didn't stop there. Inspired by the stories he heard about EMP technology, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Using spare parts from junkyards and blueprints he found online, he built a device capable of emitting a focused electromagnetic pulse. It wasn't pretty, just a jumble of wires and circuits strapped to the back of a motorcycle, but it worked. When Jake tested it on a nearby power grid, the lights flickered and died for half a mile in every direction. Grinning ear to ear, he revved the engine and sped toward the nearest military base, hoping to show someone what he'd created. To his surprise, the soldiers stationed there didn't laugh or dismiss him. Instead, they listened intently as Jake explained how his invention could help disable alien drones and smaller ships. Impressed, they invited him to join a special task force dedicated to taking down the invaders' fleet. Overnight, Jake went from being a nobody to becoming part of a top-secret mission that could change the course of history. As preparations continued, the aliens grew increasingly uneasy. Commander Zixar watched the chaos unfold below with mounting frustration. His initial plan had been straightforward: intimidate Earth into submission without firing a single shot. But humans weren't behaving like other species he'd encountered. Instead of cowering, they fought back with a ferocity that shocked even his most seasoned warriors. "It's as if they've anticipated us," muttered one of Zixar's advisors, staring at footage of human defenses mobilizing. "Their coordination is unnatural." Zixar clenched his claws, his mind racing. He hadn't expected resistance, not this kind anyway. Every attempt to communicate had failed. Humans either ignored their signals or responded with hostility. And now, strange energy readings were appearing near Earth's surface, suggesting that the humans were developing countermeasures. Desperate for answers, Zixar ordered a reconnaissance mission. A squadron of scout ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, targeting key locations where human activity seemed concentrated. Their objective was simple: gather intelligence and retreat before engaging directly. What they didn't anticipate was the ambush waiting for them. When the first alien drone entered the airspace above Chicago, it was met with a barrage of fire from concealed anti-aircraft guns. Pilots trained in dogfighting maneuvers swarmed the skies, forcing the scout ship to retreat. Simultaneously, ground troops launched EMP grenades, disabling several smaller vessels before they could escape. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes, but its impact was undeniable. For the first time since arriving, the aliens suffered losses. News of the victory spread like wildfire. People cheered in the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans. Social media exploded with videos of the battle, each clip reinforcing the belief that humanity could win. Even skeptics began to feel a glimmer of hope. For Elena, the success of the EMP towers validated months of tireless work. Standing atop one of the structures, she watched as a pulse rippled through the air, knocking out an entire formation of alien drones. Tears streamed down her face as she realized what they'd accomplished. Not just a technological breakthrough, but proof that humanity was capable of greatness when it mattered most. Back at the alien flagship, Zixar convened an emergency meeting with his council. The room buzzed with tension as advisors debated their next move. Some argued for a full-scale assault, while others urged caution. Zixar remained silent, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke, his voice heavy with authority. "We underestimated them," he admitted, his words echoing through the chamber. This species is resourceful, adaptable, and dangerously united. If we proceed recklessly, we risk losing everything. His advisors nodded grimly, knowing the truth of his statement. Earth was no longer a passive target. It was a formidable opponent. And as the days passed, it became clear that humanity wasn't done fighting, not by a long shot. As humanity continued to rally against the alien invaders, whispers of a long-buried secret began to surface. Decades earlier, during the height of the Cold War, governments around the world had poured billions into developing advanced weapons, not just to counter rival nations, but also to prepare for a potential extraterrestrial threat. These projects were shrouded in secrecy, hidden behind layers of classified documents and code names. To the public, they were myths or conspiracy theories. But now, as Earth faced its greatest challenge, those secrets came roaring back to life. The first clue emerged from deep within a mountain in Colorado. A group of engineers tasked with upgrading EMP towers stumbled upon an old bunker buried beneath layers of rock and reinforced steel. Inside, they found rows of dust-covered crates containing prototypes of experimental weapons, railguns capable of firing projectiles at hypersonic speeds, plasma cannons that could melt through metal, and even blueprints for orbital strike platforms, designed to rain destruction from space. It was like opening a time capsule from another era, one where humanity had dared to dream of defending itself against forces beyond comprehension. News of the discovery spread quickly among military leaders. Within hours, teams of experts descended on the site, carefully cataloging every item they found. Among them was General Mark Harris, a grizzled veteran who had spent his career preparing for worst-case scenarios. As he inspected the railgun prototype, his eyes widened with disbelief. "This thing looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie," he muttered, running his hand over its sleek surface. And yet, it works. Indeed, many of the weapons proved functional after minimal repairs. Engineers marveled at how far ahead of their time these designs were. Some speculated that the technology had been reverse-engineered from crashed UFOs, a claim neither confirmed nor denied by officials. What mattered most was that these tools gave humanity a fighting chance against an enemy vastly superior in both numbers and firepower. Meanwhile, Jake Thompson found himself thrust deeper into the heart of humanity's resistance effort. After proving the effectiveness of his homemade EMP device, he was assigned to a special operations unit tasked with deploying the newly uncovered arsenal. His role? Modify existing aircraft to carry EMP charges and coordinate attacks on key alien targets. It was a daunting responsibility, but Jake embraced it with quiet determination. Working alongside a team of pilots and technicians, Jake transformed ordinary fighter jets into high-tech war machines. He installed EMP pods under the wings, added reinforced shielding to protect against alien lasers, and rigged the cockpits with custom controls for precision strikes. Each modification brought him closer to feeling like he was making a real difference. For someone who had once felt invisible, this newfound purpose was exhilarating. But not everyone shared Jake's optimism. In Washington, D.C., political leaders debated whether unleashing such powerful weapons would escalate the conflict unnecessarily. "We're playing with fire here," warned Senator Laura Chen during a closed-door meeting. "If we push too hard, they might retaliate in ways we can't handle." Others argued that restraint was no longer an option. "They've already shown us they mean business," countered Defense Secretary Robert Klein. "If we don't hit them where it hurts, we'll lose everything." Ultimately, the decision rested with President Emily Carter, whose calm demeanor masked the weight of her responsibilities. After hours of deliberation, she gave the green light for Operation Skybreaker, a coordinated assault aimed at crippling the alien fleet's command structure. The plan involved launching simultaneous strikes on multiple fronts, using the newly discovered arsenal to maximum effect. As preparations intensified, civilians played a crucial role in supporting the war effort. Factories operated around the clock, producing ammunition and spare parts. Farmers donated food supplies to feed soldiers stationed near alien hotspots. Even school children contributed by organizing fundraisers to support families affected by the crisis. Everywhere you looked, people were doing whatever they could to help. One particularly inspiring story came from a small village in India, where a group of women banded together to sew uniforms and repair damaged equipment. Led by a retired seamstress named Meera Patel, they worked tirelessly despite having no formal training. If our men and women are risking their lives to save us, the least we can do is make sure they have what they need, Meera said when asked why she joined the cause. Back aboard the alien flagship, Commander Zixar watched these developments with growing alarm. Reports from his scouts painted a troubling picture. Human forces were adapting faster than expected, utilizing technologies that shouldn't exist according to their intelligence files. Worse still, morale among his crew was plummeting. Soldiers, who had once swaggered with confidence, now whispered nervously about Earth's resilience. At a strategy meeting, Zixar slammed his fist on the table, causing several advisors to flinch. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his voice trembling with anger. "Every report we received said Earthlings were primitive, yet here we are, struggling to maintain control." His chief strategist hesitated before responding. Perhaps their unity is amplifying their abilities. Alone, they may be weak. Together, they are formidable. Zixar glared at the holographic display showing Earth's defenses. Cities bristled with anti-aircraft guns, skies buzzed with fighter jets, and underground bunkers housed unimaginable firepower. He realized his mistake. Underestimating humanity had been a fatal error. If he didn't act decisively, his mission, and possibly his entire species, would be doomed. Determined to regain the upper hand, Zixar ordered the deployment of their most devastating weapon, a gravity well generator capable of collapsing entire continents. The device was risky, requiring immense energy to operate, but it promised to end the conflict swiftly. Once activated, it would create a localized black hole, sucking everything within range into oblivion. There would be no survivors, unbeknownst to the aliens. However, humanity had anticipated such a move. Through intercepted communications and analysis of alien ship movements, scientists deduced that the invaders were planning something catastrophic. They scrambled to develop countermeasures, knowing failure meant annihilation. Elena Cruz led the charge, proposing a bold plan to neutralize the gravity well generator before it could activate. Her idea involved launching a concentrated EMP blast directly at the alien flagship, disabling the generator and buying humanity precious time. It was a gamble. With the flagship disabled, the rest of the fleet might fall into disarray, but it was the only shot they had. With less than 24 hours, until the generator's estimated activation, Jake and his squadron prepared for the mission of a lifetime. Pilots reviewed flight paths, engineers double-checked equipment, and strategists ran simulations to ensure every detail was accounted for. Tension hung thick in the air, but there was also a sense of hope. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. As Jake climbed into the cockpit of his modified jet, he took a moment to reflect on how far he'd come. From a humble mechanic to a soldier leading a critical mission, he had risen to meet the challenge head-on. Looking out at the horizon, bathed in the eerie glow of alien ships, he tightened his grip on the controls. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain: Earth was ready. The day of Operation Skybreaker dawned with an eerie stillness. The sky, usually bright and inviting, was overshadowed by the looming alien ships that had become a permanent fixture above Earth. People around the world held their breath, glued to their screens as news outlets broadcast live updates from military command centers. For humanity, this was the moment of truth. A chance to turn the tide in their favor or face unimaginable consequences. At a remote airbase nestled in the mountains, Jake Thompson and his squadron prepared for what would likely be the most dangerous mission of their lives. The hangar buzzed with activity as technicians performed final checks on the fighter jets. Pilots exchanged nervous glances but maintained stoic expressions, knowing that hesitation wasn't an option. This wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. Jake stood beside his jet, running through the mission plan one last time in his mind. His modified aircraft carried EMP pods designed to disable the alien flagship's gravity well generator, a weapon so powerful it could obliterate entire continents if activated. Success depended on precision timing and flawless execution. One mistake and Earth would pay the ultimate price. As he climbed into the cockpit, Jake glanced at the photo taped to the dashboard, a picture of his younger sister, Lily, smiling brightly during a family picnic. She had begged him not to go, tears streaming down her face when she learned about the mission. But Jake had promised her something before leaving. "I'll come back. I won't let anything happen to us." He repeated those words silently, now drawing strength from them. The engines roared to life and the squadron took off in formation, cutting through the clouds toward the alien fleet. Below, millions watched the skies, hearts pounding with anticipation. They knew the stakes. This battle would decide the fate of their planet. Commander Zixar paced the bridge of his flagship, frustration etched across his angular features. Reports from scouts indicated increased human activity near the fleet's perimeter. Despite his earlier confidence, doubt gnawed at him. Humanity had proven resourceful, adaptable, and relentless. Could they really pull off another surprise? His chief strategist approached cautiously, holding a tablet displaying real-time data. "Sir, enemy forces are approaching fast. Their numbers are smaller than expected, but their trajectory suggests they're targeting the flagship," Zixar growled under his breath. "They're desperate," he muttered. "Activate the gravity well generator immediately. We'll crush them before they reach us." "Yes, Commander," the strategist replied, hurrying to relay the order. Unbeknownst to the aliens, humanity had anticipated this exact move. Elena Cruz's team had worked tirelessly to refine the EMP technology, ensuring it could penetrate the flagship's defenses. As the gravity well generator hummed to life, emitting low-frequency vibrations that rattled nearby ships, Jake's squadron closed in on their target. "All right, team," Jake said over the comms, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Stick to the plan. Hit hard and fast. Let's show them what we're made of." The alien fleet responded with a barrage of laser fire, lighting up the sky like fireworks. Human pilots dodged and weaved, their training paying off as they navigated the deadly storm. Behind them, ground-based anti-aircraft guns provided cover fire, forcing alien fighters to retreat temporarily. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Jake locked onto the flagship, his heart hammering in his chest. Deploying EMP in 3, 2, 1, he pressed the trigger, releasing a concentrated pulse of electromagnetic energy directly at the massive vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening crackle, the flagship's systems began to fail. Lights flickered, engines sputtered, and the ominous hum of the gravity well generator faded into silence. On board the flagship, alarms blared as crew members scrambled to contain the damage. Zixar slammed his fists against the console, rage boiling inside him. "How is this possible?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Their technology shouldn't be able to do this." His advisors exchanged panicked looks, unsure how to respond. The once invincible alien fleet was reeling, its flagship crippled and vulnerable. Morale plummeted as soldiers realized their commander's arrogance might have doomed them all. Back on Earth, cheers erupted as news of the successful EMP strike spread. Cities lit up with celebrations, though the war was far from over. Military leaders wasted no time capitalizing on the wham advantage. Ground troops launched coordinated assaults on alien outposts, reclaiming territory inch by inch. Fighter jets continued to harass the remaining ships, keeping them occupied, while engineers worked to repair damaged infrastructure. For Jake and his squadron, the victory was bittersweet. Several pilots hadn't returned from the mission, their sacrifices etched into the memories of those who survived. As Jake landed his jet back at the airbase, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, but he forced himself to stand tall, knowing there was still work to be done. In the aftermath of the EMP strike, Commander Zixar convened an emergency council aboard his damaged flagship. The gravity well generator was offline, and repairs would take days, if not weeks, to complete. Worse still, communication with the rest of the fleet had been disrupted, leaving many ships isolated and vulnerable. "We cannot continue this fight," one advisor admitted, breaking the tense silence. "Our resources are depleted, and morale is crumbling. If we stay, we risk total annihilation." Zexar clenched his claws, struggling to accept defeat. Failure meant disgrace, not just for him, but for his entire species. Yet deep down, he knew the advisor was right. Earth had proven itself more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Continuing the invasion would only lead to further losses. "Prepare the withdrawal," Zixar ordered finally, his voice heavy with resignation. "But first send a message to their leaders. Tell them we will leave peacefully. For now." The transmission reached Earth within minutes, causing shockwaves across the globe. Governments debated whether to trust the aliens' promise, but ultimately decided to accept the ceasefire. Representatives from both sides agreed to meet aboard the crippled flagship, where terms of surrender were negotiated. As the alien fleet began retreating, people around the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. Streets filled with jubilant, crowds waving flags and singing songs of triumph. In schools, offices, and homes, stories of heroism spread like wildfire. Heroes emerged from every corner of society, from scientists like Elena Cruz, whose innovations saved countless lives, to ordinary citizens who refused to give up hope. For Jake, the experience changed everything. Once an unassuming mechanic, he now found himself hailed as a national hero. Reporters clamored for interviews and strangers thanked him wherever he went. Yet, despite the accolades, Jake remained humble. He knew the real credit belonged to everyone who had contributed to the fight: the pilots who flew alongside him, the engineers who built the weapons, and the civilians who supported the war effort. One evening, as Jake stood on a hill overlooking his hometown, he looked up at the clear night sky. The alien ships were gone, leaving behind only stars twinkling faintly in the darkness. A sense of peace washed over him, mingled with pride. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious, not because of superior technology or brute strength, but because of unity, courage, and determination. As he turned to head home, Jake smiled softly. Earth had proven itself capable of defending its place in the universe, and perhaps one day it would claim an even greater role among the stars. The departure of the alien fleet marked the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. For the first time in weeks, the skies were clear, free of the ominous glow that had haunted Earth's atmosphere. People stepped outside their homes, gazing upward with a mix of relief and awe. The world had changed forever, and not just because of the aliens' visit. Humanity had discovered its own strength, resilience, and capacity for unity. In the days following the ceasefire, leaders from around the globe convened to discuss what came next. The United Nations headquarters in New York became the epicenter of these discussions, with representatives debating how to handle the aftermath of the invasion. One thing was certain: this crisis had exposed both the vulnerabilities and untapped potential of human civilization. It was an opportunity, a chance to rebuild stronger, smarter, and more united than ever before. Dr. Elena Cruz found herself at the forefront of these efforts. Her groundbreaking work on EMP technology had saved countless lives, earning her international recognition. But Elena wasn't interested in fame or accolades. Instead, she focused on using the knowledge gained during the conflict to benefit humanity. Alongside a team of scientists, engineers, and policymakers, she spearheaded initiatives to repurpose alien technology recovered from disabled ships. These innovations promised breakthroughs in energy production, medicine, and space exploration. "We've been given a second chance," Elena told a packed auditorium during a global summit. "Let's use it wisely. This isn't about revenge or greed, it's about progress, about ensuring that no one can threaten us again." Her words resonated deeply with audiences worldwide. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like NAR New Earth and Together We Rise, as people shared stories of hope and determination. Communities rallied together to rebuild damaged infrastructure, planting trees where alien attacks had scorched the land and restoring neighborhoods torn apart by fear. Even children joined in, organizing fundraisers and art projects to honor those who had sacrificed so much. Meanwhile, Commander Zixar and his crew retreated into deep space, licking their wounds and grappling with the implications of their failure. Back aboard their mothership, a colossal vessel hidden beyond Earth's solar system, Zixar faced judgment from his superiors. Leaders of the alien coalition listened impassively as he recounted the events leading up to their retreat. When he finished, silence fell over the chamber. "You underestimated them," said the Supreme Overlord, his voice cold and unforgiving. "And now, because of your arrogance, we have lost valuable resources and credibility. What do you propose we do next?" Zixar hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Earth is unlike any species we've encountered before. They are resourceful, adaptable, and dangerously united. If we attempt another invasion, they will retaliate with everything they have, and possibly succeed. I recommend establishing diplomatic relations instead. Share our knowledge cautiously, and perhaps we can forge an alliance." The Overlord considered this, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded curtly. "Very well, but know this. If diplomacy fails, you will lead the next assault personally. Do not disappoint me again." Zixar bowed low, hiding the turmoil brewing inside him. He knew the decision carried risks, but it was better than outright war. As the meeting adjourned, he couldn't shake the image of Earth's defenders, the mechanic turned pilot, the scientist who turned magnetic fields into weapons, the ordinary citizens who refused to surrender. They had proven themselves worthy adversaries, and Zixar couldn't help but feel a grudging respect for them. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such an event. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and families reunited under brighter skies. Yet reminders of the invasion lingered everywhere. Craters scarred landscapes, monuments honored fallen heroes, and museums displayed artifacts salvaged from alien wreckage. These relics served as constant reminders of how close humanity had come to extinction and how far it had come since then. For Jake Thompson, returning to civilian life proved challenging. After being celebrated as a hero, going back to fixing cars felt oddly anticlimactic, but Jake didn't mind. He cherished the quiet moments spent tinkering in his garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects. Still, he couldn't deny that something within him had shifted. The invasion had awakened a sense of purpose he hadn't known existed. One afternoon, while working on a vintage motorcycle, Jake received an unexpected visitor. A sleek black limousine pulled into his driveway, drawing curious stares from neighbors. Out stepped General Mark Harris, dressed in civilian clothes but radiating authority. Jake wiped grease-stained hands on a rag and approached cautiously. "General?" he asked, surprised. "What brings you here?" Harris smiled warmly. "I heard you've been keeping busy. Thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing." Jake shrugged modestly. "Just trying to keep my head down, sir. Life's pretty simple compared to, well, you know." Harris chuckled. "Simple is good. But let me ask you something. Do you really want to go back to the way things were? You played a key role in saving this planet, Jake. That kind of talent shouldn't go to waste." Jake frowned, unsure where this conversation was heading. "What are you saying?" "I'm offering you a position," Harris explained. "We're forming a new division dedicated to planetary defense. Your experience and ingenuity would be invaluable. Plus, it pays better than fixing cars." For a moment, Jake stood speechless. The offer was tempting, but it also meant stepping back into the chaos he'd fought so hard to escape. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Let me think about it," he said, "but thanks for considering me." As Harris climbed back into the limo, Jake watched it drive away, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Maybe he wasn't ready to leave his old life behind entirely, but perhaps there was room for both worlds. Elsewhere, other survivors reflected on the lessons learned during the invasion. In India, Meera Patel and her group of seamstresses continued, sewing uniforms for soldiers. Though demand had decreased significantly, they decided to expand their efforts, creating clothing and blankets for refugees displaced by the conflict. Their workshop became a symbol of resilience, inspiring others to contribute in whatever ways they could. In New York City, Greg Miller, the retired engineer who had converted his garage into a workshop, started teaching classes on DIY survival skills. Students ranged from teenagers eager to learn practical trades to adults looking to prepare for future emergencies. His motto quickly gained popularity. You don't need fancy gadgets to make a difference. Sometimes all you need is creativity and determination. Even children found ways to process the trauma of the invasion. Schools introduced programs encouraging students to express themselves through art, writing, and music. Murals depicting scenes of bravery and unity adorned walls across towns and cities, reminding everyone of what they had overcome together. Months passed, and Earth began to heal. The scars remained, but so did the resolve to move forward. Governments implemented stricter regulations on space exploration, vowing never to be caught off guard again. Scientists collaborated internationally, sharing discoveries made from studying alien technology. Some even dreamed of reaching out to other civilizations, hoping to prevent future conflicts through dialogue rather than violence. For Commander Zixar, the lessons of Earth weighed heavily. Though officially tasked with pursuing diplomacy, he couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that humanity might one day surpass his own species. Perhaps that was why they had won, not because of superior firepower, but because of their ability to adapt, innovate, and unite in the face of adversity. As the years rolled on, humanity looked toward the stars with renewed curiosity and caution. Space agencies launched probes deeper into the cosmos, searching for answers about the universe and about themselves. The memory of the alien invasion lingered, not as a source of fear, but as a testament to what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. One evening, as Jake sat on his porch watching the sunset, he thought about how much had changed. The sky was peaceful now, dotted with stars that seemed closer somehow, as if inviting humanity to explore further. Smiling softly, he raised a glass of lemonade and a silent toast. To new beginnings, he murmured. And somewhere among the stars, Commander Zixar watched silently, wondering if the next encounter would end differently, or if Earth's defenders would rise once more.